Everyone in this book needs a hug and a counselor. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I've had this idea for a long time now, which is to read my friends' favorite books. I think it's a very fun way to get to know the people in your life just a little bit more. I was at the library the other day and just on display was The Family Fang by Kevin Wilson, which is my friend Jay's favorite book, and she will not stop talking about The Family Fang, about Kevin Wilson, and specifically referring to it as like her red flag, that she likes this just like white dude from the Midwest books. And so I thought, let me put my hat into the ring and determine how much of a red flag this is. How worried do I need to be? What am I going to learn about Jay in the process of reading this book? I think it'll be fun to take you along with me as I read it. Now let's get to reading. So I've just read a little bit. It is about this family of four, mom, dad, brother, sister, and the parents kind of perform this outlandish performance art involving the whole family. You have them going to like random places and creating a scene of some sort. Sometimes it's happy, sometimes it's sad, sometimes it's bewildering, and they're a very like artistic, intellectual couple that just wrangles their kids into their shenanigans. And so it's going back in time between these different moments, these different performance pieces from back in the day to the present moment where Annie and Buster are grown up, or, you know, like in their 20s or 30s and trying to live their lives, and oftentimes not very successfully. I will say it, in the very beginning, I find Buster's scenes a little bit funnier than Annie's. Annie's feels a little bit more depressing, and it's the same style of humor, but I think being a woman and having certain things culturally where we're put at a disadvantage, or there's certain like limitations of choice, it feels like, just I feel that more, and it feels like a collective affront and therefore less funny than something happening to Buster and it feels like a one-off, like this is just happening to Buster. It's not happening to men everywhere getting hit with a potato gun. It's just he's dumb, and this is the thing that happened to him. Kevin Wilson has a great talent so far for really capturing your attention quickly. You have these like really like quirky circumstances right off the bat. You have attention getter like first lines of chapters that really draws you in. There's like this adult melancholy to their lives that's interesting. It's kind of like a Gen X elder millennial ennui kind of vibe that I'm getting. John Green, if he was less hopeful and wrote for adults. So you have Annie, who is working as an actress, and Buster, who is working as article journalist. He just finds these quirky, weird things and goes to them, observes them, and then writes about them, but makes them try to seem cool. Here, I'll give you some of the like zingy hooks, because those are easy to find. It was time for a vacation, so they all got fake IDs. Just immediately you're like, what? Okay, here's one more, and then I'll leave you. None of the Fangs could deny it. Buster was beautiful. So it's really interesting to see the kind of pieces fall into place of kind of how these characters got to where they were, like the bizarre childhood they had leading into their bizarre and like broken adult lives. So we'll see where this goes. What it says about Jay might be a little too early to say, but Jay, are you okay? You're at a much better advantage than these two, that's for sure. See you on the flip side. do I look? I'm trying on a different look, a different outfit. I'm in my 30s. I still don't know how to dress myself. Just got back from hanging with friends. You better have said this looks good because it's already happened. It is extra in the past and I can't do anything about it. I'm gonna change to be a little bit more comfortable and then I'm gonna do some reading. I thought I would give you a little bit of some thoughts I've had since it's been a few days. This book reminds me a lot of the movie The Royal Tenenbaums by Wes Anderson. It's kind of funny because they both follow dysfunctional families, and what this family is with putting art on a pedestal at the expense of everything else when it comes to family. The Royal Tenenbaums do with like intellect and like being a prodigy. It's a really interesting comparison. It makes me want to rewatch The Royal Tenenbaums. But what's funny about it is Jay, who this is her favorite book, has never seen The Royal Tenenbaums, which is extra wacky because she went to film school. She majored in screenwriting. And I'm like, what? How have you not? Oh, I think she'll just really enjoy it. If she likes this one, I think she'll enjoy that one. The Royal Tenenbaums isn't my favorite Wes Anderson, but I do think it's interesting. So far, same with this. Surprisingly, I read Nothing to See Here, which is another Kevin Wilson book, in December of 2025. And so far it sucks. I hate doing this, but I am comparing the two. And I kind of like Nothing to See Here a little bit better. They both have a quirkiness to it. They have funny moments, strong lines, characterizations, all that jazz. But this one's a little bit more depressing. We'll see. I'm only, I still have like 100 pages to go. So that, the ending can make or break it or transform it, whatever. But there's just like this residual sadness. Like every time I'm done reading a little bit of this book, I'm just like, that's kind of a bummer. It took about halfway through the book to get to the major plot point, being vague so I don't give anything away, which is a mystery. And if you've been watching this channel, your girl doesn't hate mysteries, but I tend to be bored by books where that's the primary plot, like that's the main thing going on, is like, oh, what about this mystery? And I'm like, I don't care. I don't care. But I will say as a writer, I'm interested to see what Kevin does with this because he's kind of made it, I don't know where he's going to go with it, where it will be satisfactory to the readers as a resolution to the mystery that won't make the characters irredeemable assholes. So I don't know. That's interesting. I'm like, you kind of put yourself into a corner here, Kevin. I don't know how you're gonna get out. I feel like I had something else to tell you, but I don't remember. Well, what can you do? I will see you again if I think of the thing. If not, I will read more and maybe have another thing to say. Thus, the cycle of life and Kelly's opinions continue. Bye. You guys, I just got so much cleaning done. It's a Sunday. I'm feeling really proud of myself. And one of the many things I did, I reorganized that bad boy. You probably can't tell a difference, but I can. And it truly feels like spring now that I've done a little reshuffle action. I'm getting rid of about 10 books that I will rehome into the wilderness, so to speak, because I have a bunch of neighborhood libraries. Oot and a boot. So I think I'm gonna go for a little walk and do that. And then I'll come back and read a little bit more of this bad boy. Also, I would just like to say I feel very validated because author Hannah Pittard on the back of this book says it's the Royal Tenenbaums meets Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. So I'm not the only one who thinks that this is very reminiscent of the Royal Tenenbaums. But yeah, I'm hoping to finish this today and let you know what I think. I don't know why that was so hard to complete that sentence. I'm pooped, but I'll see you on the flippity flip. One of the fun things about being a mood reader and reading multiple books at the same time is that sometimes the books will be like surprisingly in conversation with each other. I've been reading another book called How to Do Nothing, Resisting the Attention Economy by Jenny Odell, and she talks about art in it. And it's funny because so much of the Family Fang is about, especially the parents, but also their mentor, exploring the furthest reaches of what art is and them having strong views of what art isn't. And they're very like anti what we think of as like traditional art or even some like more modern contemporary art, because like they're very much like anything that's just like still or announced ahead of time is kind of like dead. So this is a quote from their mentor that I thought was interesting, which was that, "What have I told you about anything that takes place in a controlled environment? It's not art. It's dead, inanimate. Who cares if you let somebody shoot you in a goddamn art gallery? There's no danger, no surprise. It has to take place in the world around people who don't know that it's art. That's how it has to be." They were talking about another artist in that scene. But it's very interesting because in Jenny Odell's book, she talks about, I think the composer's name is John Cage, and part of his piece, there's like a segment of time where there's no instrument being played. Literally the performance, the sound is the ambient noise of like the audience laughing or coughing or whatever. I think that's so peculiar, but I think that how interesting that I'm reading this at the same time as I'm reading that. She talks about an artist who I think the Fangs would have loved, where she literally was working in an office and kind of out in the open, not doing work, and that bothered so many people. Like she would just ride up and down the elevator. And if anyone asked her what she was doing, she'd be like, just thinking. Or she would just stare off into space. And so like there's plenty of people who spend time at work not working, but to have no mask or pretending of doing work or being serious or being focused is uncommon. There's also an artist who went around and like personally thanked every sanitation worker in New York. I don't know, I think it's really interesting of this conversation of what art is and what art should be doing. The Fangs are really railing against the machine, if you will, of full-time artistry, which seems like a recipe for unhappiness and also screwing up your kids. Reminding me of family vloggers, except they're doing it on a more pretentious level. So I don't know, it has a lot of interesting things going on in this book. I'm not sure what the overall message is going to be. I'm curious to see, because obviously the parents are a little messed up and they've messed their kids up. So what does that say about their version of art? I guess we'll find out. And with that, we're done. I finished Jay's favorite book, The Family Fang by Kevin Wilson. The ending's interesting. I'm going to be vague so that there's no spoilers for those who are interested. Again, there's a mystery involving the parents, and as a writer, I'm like, how do you possibly make this okay or redeemable? And the answer is that he doesn't really make them redeemable, which is very literary, and I think the only option at this point. I don't think there was, I couldn't come up with any way he could make the parents be okay after what they did. I will say I did not guess what the ending was, but it did feel on brand, so it didn't feel like out of thin air, but it doesn't feel quite satisfying. But I also don't know if that's on purpose. I don't know if I'm meant to be dissatisfied. Like, everything that the parents did isn't as grand or meaningful as I kept trying to make things to be. I don't know, maybe I'm reading into that. It's meant to end in like, not in like tied up with a bow kind of way, but it is meant to be hopeful. I didn't quite get there. I wasn't there. Maybe that'll change in time, but I'm still piecing out how I feel about things. Anyway, I will say this was a book that my friend picked up randomly, just happened to be in a pile of free books. So it wasn't necessarily their first choice to pick out. So it's a very interesting thing to kind of, because it's like they learned about themselves through picking up this book. It wasn't something that's like front of mind, like a natural thing for them to pick up. But the heaviness of this book and the melancholy, the discontent, my friend, their channel's My Quarter Life Crisis, and it always played up kind of like a joke, and they're such a bubbly personality, but like Jay, oh, if you picked this up and resonated, I'm a little worried. You were feeling quite more of a ways than I think imagined, or that you let people in on, because you always kind of make light of your crises and dilemmas of the time. It makes me want to give younger Jay a hug, because everyone in this book needs a hug and a counselor. I'm really glad to have read this, you know, gotten an inside peek into a bit of the lore of my friend and their favorite book, because they do talk about it all the flippin' time. And you'll see that on their channel, which I highly recommend checking out. I think maybe everyone in our friend group has read this now, so look at you, Jay, the ultimate influencer. I think if you really want a book that makes you think, and a book that really pushes at your buttons of really flawed characters, a quirkiness and a humor, but also this like heavy emotional journey and dysfunction, and dealing with like topics of how does one live their life? How is their life part of art, separate from art? How do you move on past your parents and both your childhood trauma and the like ongoing trauma that is being compounded by the people who raised you? It gives you a lot to think about. So if you're in for a little bit of a harder read, a read that really challenges you, not necessarily in like the sentence by sentence aspect, but just in the feels and in kind of experimental intellectual contemplation of like what happens to people if this happened, and like, you know, how did we get here kind of vibe, this might be for you. It's not my favorite book of all time, but I'm glad I read it, and it is extra special because it's special to a person I care about. If you haven't read any of your friend or family's favorite books, you should. And I don't know when I'm going to do the next one of these, but I do plan on continuing this series, so stay tuned. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you later. Bye.